we gather to bestow one of the highest honors upon Mark Smith, the induction into the North American Limousine Foundation Hall of Fame. This accolade recognizes his exceptional achievements, his profound impact on the breed, and his outstanding contributions to the limousine community. Mark's name will forever be etched in the history of the foundation alongside other esteemed individuals who have shaped the breed's legacy. So tonight we're here to honor Mark and to start the program for some opening remarks. I'd like to introduce your NALF Executive Director, Mark Anderson. Mark.
Thank you, Doug. It is truly an honor and a privilege to even stand before you tonight with the gentleman that we're going to honor. I say I've only been with now 12. That's nothing compared to a lot of the folks in this room that have dedicated their whole lives to you, the breeders, and the association for the development and foundation and continuation of this wonderful breeding cattle. I cannot imagine or even think about how many hours, how many miles, how many folks' lives he's touched, businesses that he's helped along the way. I had one of the presenters tonight call me here a couple of weeks ago and wanted to get all the details. I started looking through, our history and our books, and it really hit home with me, and it touches my heart. We rely on those individuals heavily for guidance in the association. And Mark has generously donated his time, and we needed help, and still to this day, Mark Smith has been the man we can go to. I've got another member of the Hall of Fame in here, of course, Mr. Sonny Booth, C.K. Sonny Booth. But I look in the past, and I'm not going to take away Mr. Yackman's thunder in any way, but Mark will be the 9th inductee in the North American Limousine Foundation Hall of Fame. And when I look at all the facets of this breed and all the services he's provided to it, it's incredible. You go down the list, and it's in this program, and I look at what Mark's done, everything from, of course, the semen sales, the cattle sales, the magazine business, still continuing with some of those today, and then the now board president for 2 years. Now that's dedication, because I know what that can be, Mark. I just, after 12 years, you begin to understand the tolerance a man has to have to give the breed the guidance, some of the things that we go through from time to time, and then an employee of the association. He's been an incredible asset to the staff at NALF. I know that when I get behind, and Kenneth, God bless his heart, he's not with us here anymore, and I knew I could rely on him and Mark, and Sonny as well, when I needed guidance, and other members sitting in this room. But those guys with the history, those guys that have got the miles and the hours, and I think about the time, I saw the picture when he's standing in front of the twin prop with Kenneth and Bruce and Sue Ann. And it's about as cool a pic as you can find. And I think you'd agree with me. But it does truly touch my heart when I think about that. And then the miles he's put in with Randy and Kylie, and all the services those folks have provided. I have no idea how many miles it's been, but it's got to be close to 45 some years. That's dedication to you folks. So, Mark, I'm not going to get windy. We got some special people to talk tonight, but thank you for the help. We look forward to seeing you in Bozeman for help to book out board meeting, and don't throw the phone away, partner. And thank you. God bless you indeed. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I can remember back the evening of 1979. Mark and I first met. I was sitting in the hallway, yard hall. I was working for American Cattle Services. And finished, my job was to water and feed the cattle. I was sitting there in the hallway having a beer. And here comes this skinny, tall guy He must have been 6'12". He come up to me and he says, I hear you're going to go work for the brokers. Sure. And I said, yes, sir. And at that time, little did I know that that was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. And I'm so honored to be part of this tonight and be part of Mark being inducted to the Hall of Fame. The next gentleman that's going to speak is also very dear to my heart. He's a current Hall of Fame member, former NALF board member, and a great auctioneer and son of a
Well, Doug, you stole part of my speech when you talked about the tall, skinny guy when you first met him. The first time I met Mark Smith was in the hallway of the Holiday Inn in Denver, Colorado. I mean, many years ago, and Bill Angel introduced him to me and said, "This is our new field man here." And I'm looking up at Mark thinking, well, this guy looks pretty green. Maybe he'll make it. And my gosh, did he make it. Wow. I've got a few things I want to say about Mark tonight. I've been asked to say a few remarks, of course, about Mark, and I will try to make this seem like the shortest 3 hours that you've spent today. So, anyway, I could talk all night about Mark, but I'm just going to talk about a few things. You've seen your program, you know what Mark's done. I'll touch on a few of those things. Before I even start on that, I want to thank Kyle McKenna, his staff, Limousine 365 staff, Mary Quigley. They put all this together tonight. Randy, all of you guys. I was on the committee and I felt like I wasn't even on the committee with Kylie at the helm, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Mark's involvement, of course, has covered many different avenues for many years. I'm going to look at my notes tonight. I usually don't do this at an auction. But he started his career, or his interest, in livestock. One of the starting moments for him was when he was on the livestock judging team at the University of Missouri. He was working at that time for his cousin and uncle in a Bull Hereford setting. And Greg Martin's sitting right back here, and he told me a few things about Mark. He said, "I'll tell you what, I've never coached a gentleman that wanted more information and how he could be better than Mark." And Mark turned out to be one outstanding livestock judge at the University of Missouri. So a lot of you may not know that, but anyway, he worked there at Master Key. I heard that name called a lot for the first 2 or 3 years in the auction business, Mark. But anyway, Mark had a great background with some great people, and golly, he started, then he became the field editor for the record stockman. And he told me his first duties was to go out and meet some people that bought advertising. Well, he didn't realize it. We called him TV Jones, but Tommy Jones had sold a lot of advertising, and he would increase the amount of the advertising and send everybody a bill. So some of them ran Mark off, so we don't want anything to do. Of course, with being a field editor, he said, "Okay, I'll just keep trying." So he started working on other breeds. Limousine was one of them. Started working for the Limousine Journal, one of the best things he ever did in his life, 81 and 82. And then he started to work, and you saw a lot of pictures up here for American Cattle Services. And you talk about if you want to go somewhere and learn about what you need to do in the sale management auction business, being a fieldman or doing anything else, go get in that airplane ride for that many years that Mark did with Ken Holloway, Bruce, and that crew. I'll tell you what, they're a great crew, and I know that Mark appreciates everything he learned. Then he went on to be on the staff at the North American Limousine Foundation. I say this, I think he was one of the greatest staff members ever. He was so well-rounded, you could call in the office and ask anything, he would give you an answer, I promise you. He did that till 1990, and then he started 10 years as a partner in Limousine. And ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted limousine seamen, which a lot of people did. I mean, the breed was growing. You called Lenny Jean, you didn't call anybody else. And I got this in my notes later, I'll just cover it right now. But Mark knew more about limousine, seamen, and the breeders' programs than anybody in the country. And I don't know how many times I've been riding down the road. I'll get ahead of myself a little bit here, but I would hear this, "Hello, this is Mark Smith," and then that infectious laugh that he has, you know, and people would just, I mean, play on that. They became in a good mood, and he was giving them all kinds of information, and it was all right. I mean, Mark studied it. If there was a bull in a bull battery, I promise you, Mark, if it was an older bull, he had already seen calves behind him, he'd tell them, "Hey, these calves will work." Or if they wanted a bull that wouldn't work for them, Mark, he would tell them exactly. Okay, and then after that, in 2001, he started Grassroots, ladies and gentlemen. It was the seaman company, consulting company, and insurance, along with Dee, selling insurance. And Mark became one of the great consultants ever, in my opinion, during that time. He also was consulting and working the ring. He also became one of the great ringmen. He knew people, he was friends with them, he knew what they wanted, what they needed, just a super ringman. I think all the guys here that have been in the auction business and served as ringmen would agree with me on that. During this time, I know we've already talked about that, but he served on the NALF board. As Mark pointed out, became president of the NALF board. And I'll tell you what, his knowledge of the breed and knowledge of people was just tremendous during his time on the board. In 1992, he made one of the greatest decisions he ever made. He married Deidre. Deidre became part of that family. They later added another part in the family named Coda, their great dog. You saw pictures of Coda up here, but Dee's been a great partner for Mark for all these years, heavily involved in the insurance business. All right, he worked at that for 35 years. During that time, we have a deal for people that are in the auction business, ringmen and so forth, called the Marketeers. And it's quite an honor to get in the Marketeers. Well, Mark has been inducted into the Hall of Fame of the Marketeers as a great member of that organization. He also, I'm sure he made more breeding decisions to limousine breeders than anybody on the planet. I'm sure of that. Another thing about Mark, his professionalism and his integrity was always at the forefront of his career. It didn't matter if it was something that wasn't going to make him any money. I'll guarantee you, he told it exactly the way it was, whether a breeder wanted to hear it or not. So I'll give it all up to Mark for that. Another thing that Mark always impressed me, Mark always dressed the part of a professional, and he looked the part of a professional. Thank you, Dale Runyon, for part of that, because we'd get up in the mornings, we traveled so many miles together. First thing we'd do is strap on those neckties and put that sports coat on. Who brought this BS? And anyway, I'll get on with it here. Maybe I'll have to touch it. One other thing that you may not know about Mark, is my 5 minutes up yet? One thing that you may not know about Mark, I think in the back of his mind, he always wanted to try the auctioneer business. And one day, in Kentucky, he got his big chance on a big-time cycle. I arrived the night before from Montana. I could not even make a squeak. I couldn't even make a motel reservation. I get out there, I'm going to the walk-in clinic in the morning. I still can't talk. And I said, Mark, it's all on your back. You're going to be the auctioneer today on Miners Land and Cattle. And you know what? He did a great job. And if he ever wanted to get in the auction business, I promise you, he would have been a good one. I'm not going to talk very much longer, but I'm just going to tell you that probably Mark and I, and I'm not exaggerating, we probably traveled over 1 million miles together, up and down the pavements all over the United States, selling limousine cattle. But one thing that, a couple of things, I will tell you that on a trip that Mark made on a different note, we're going to Oregon. Oregon. We flew in at night for a sale in Oregon. And this was back before we had iPhones, and we always left a message at the front desk, give us a wake-up call because we got things to do. Well, we needed to get up really, really early. We left a wake-up call for 6 o'clock. I don't remember what it was. And the phone rang, and I don't know which one of us reached over. We roomed together at that time trying to save money. All of us did. One of us reached over and picked the phone up and slammed it back down, you know. First one gets to go shower, then the second one, we slapped those neckties on, we got our sports jackets on, and one of us looked at the clock and it was 2:30 a.m. Somebody had rang our room. We both laid back down on our beds and slept the rest of the night with our sports jackets on. And that's a true story, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you, I've talked long enough. I've got more stories about the road, but I'm not going to talk about them. But I'll tell you what, Mert's a close friend, and just a great one. I don't know of any breed association that's ever had a better one than he was during that time as a marketeer. On and on, I could go on and on, but I just like for everybody to help me congratulate a great friend of mine and a great friend of yours for this great honor going into the 1993 Hall of Fame, Mark Smith. We all think a lot of you, Mark.
Thank you, Sonny. I do want to clarify part of Sonny's story. They both had separate beds in them. Just want to make that clear. Sure. The next gentleman we have, needs no introduction by any means. He's a former NALF board member, one of the great marketeers and great readers in the state of South Dakota, Mr. Bob Yackley. Bob.
And as he introduced, my name is Bob Yackley from Oneida, South Dakota. And I'm here tonight with my wife, Elaine. Most all of you would know Elaine over there because we spent a jillion years traveling around the country and going to junior shows, going to board meetings and this and that and the other thing. But I have a distinct honor tonight, honor Mark Smith, to be one of the speakers tonight, to congratulate Mark Smith as a 2023 inductee into the Limousine Breed Hall of Fame. I've had the privilege of knowing Mark and calling him my friend for over 40 years. And some of you in this room don't know who I am, and some of you, especially you young couples out there, you look up here and say, who the heck is this guy? We haven't seen him for a while. And you're right, I haven't been around for a long time. So I just want to tell you a little bit about where I come from and what I am here. And we're, first of all, lifetime members of the North American Limousine Foundation. And one of the early members to be coming to the breed. Elaine and I have 3 sons. To refresh that memory a little bit, Steve, Todd, and Mike. We only had 3 sons, and there's a couple of young families out here, and for you young moms and dads out there, raising a young family, our guys were about 1, 2, and 3 at one time. Well, guess what, in the blink of an eye, now they're 59, 60, and 61. Yikes. That's a lot of hamburgers and a lot of stops, quick stops on the way to junior show. We have 13 grandchildren and 19 great-grandchildren, and 2 of them are showing cattle here today. They don't carry the name exactly, their name is Bertie. Sasha is the mom. And we are truly blessed to have a life like that, to have those kids all around us. A lot of you older folks in this room know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to grandkids and having your families close. And I was honored to serve on the national board and be the national president in 1985. My friend Greg Martin and Pat are here tonight. Welcome to South Dakota. And they were the executive vice president during that period of done it all in the limousine breed, from being a breeder, you've heard all about it, but being a breeder, limousine journal fieldman, sales management team with American Cattle Services. They did every one of our sales in South Dakota. Mark was there for a good many of them. And he was an employee for NALF, you heard, board member. He went from being an employee to a board member, and then a two-term national president. And being a national president myself, I know what that really means, and the leadership that he had to put forth. He is presently owner and operator of Grass-Rich Genetics and a consulting business, a sales company of livestock insurance, embryos, semen, and you got it, Mr. Limousine. It has been said that a person sees best who they really are through the eyes and the lives of others. Think about that just a little bit. Mark has certainly touched the lives of many in the cattle industry. Most of us in this room have known Mark through his relationship connected with the limousine breed. He has been involved with the breed of cattle for nearly 45 years. So some have known him a long time, and maybe others only for a short period. Regardless of your time of knowing Mark Smith, it doesn't take long to call him your friend. It is said that in order to have a friend, you must first be a friend. Mark has always been a friend first to others, and that is why he has the respect of so many people of many different regions of North America, and not just the limousine breed, but throughout the entire beef industry worldwide. When you think of the past 8 Limousine Hall of Fame inductees since 1991, I, like many of you in this room, have known each one of them personally. But I know that some of you have not had that privilege, and some of you are not like the rest of us old-timers. But we have been privileged to know every one of those guys, and now Mark Smith. Mark is going to be number 9. He's an inductee to the Limousine Hall of Fame, and he is so deserving of this distinguished recognition, as were each of the others that preceded him for this great honor. The likes of Floyd McGowan, Dale Runyon, Leonard Wolf, Ken Holloway, Sonny Booth, Herman Simmons, Gene Raymond, and Ed Pittiger. A lot of us in this room knew every one of them on a personal basis. So we are blessed. We're blessed to know Mark Smith as well. Each of them touched the limousine breed in their own way throughout North America. And now Mark is being added to that elite group of people that have all had a lasting impact on the limousine breed in the lives of many. So congratulations, Mark. It has been a privilege to have a small part in honoring you as the 9th member of the North American Limousine Hall of Fame. And thanks to the Limousine Hall of Fame Committee for allowing me to be just a small part of this great evening. It has truly been a privilege to help honor Mark Smith. And may the wind blow your sails, Mark, to propel you on to great things in your life and in your ability to serve others. Congratulations, Mark, and thank you for what you have meant to all of us. Thanks.
Let's see if this works. Thank you, Bob. During each one of these speakers, I was asked to maybe tell a small story that some of the escapades that Mark and some of us guys, sir? Okay. Anyway, somewhere along back in the 80s, mid-80s, middle 80s, they quit selling Chevys in Glenmorangie in the States, here in the United States. So at that time, I was working for Bruce and Kenneth, and I think Mark maybe is working for now for someone, their journal. Anyway, we were in Canada. We got through with the sale up there in Canada, and Kenneth went and bought a case of Glenmorangie Scotch. Put it in the nose of the plane. We take off. Mark and I always, every summer, go to Bozeman, Montana, or up to Ennis and go trout fishing. So we were planned that they're going to drop us off in Bozeman and go fishing. Well, on the got this great idea. He says, we need to get a couple of those bottles of scotch for that week where we're in Bozeman. So I said, okay. So he devised this plan. He says, you take Holloway and get his attention and do something, and I'll go around and I'll get our bags and get that stuff. So, well, there's two things you got to know about Ken Holloway. If you get in a wrestling match with him, there's two things going to happen. First, somebody's going to get hurt. Second, it's probably going to be you. Anyway, we got out of that plane. For some reason, I thought I'd grab him by the neck and have him in a neck hold. And we wrestled around there, and I grabbed the side of the plane door, and he slams the door on my hand. Just like I said. Anyway, the wrestling match was over right then. So we get on, and Kenneth told us later on, he says, it just really bothered me why you jumped me from out there on the tarmac and I just let you all off. He says, then I got home, the next morning I went out there to get my case of scotch. I found it was 2 bottles light. So next morning while we're at the cabin, I've got my hand in an ice bucket. And I tell Mark, I said, we didn't think this through. I said, if we'd asked Kenneth, he'd have gave us a bottle of that scotch. Mark says, but he would have gave us 2. The next gentleman that we have to speak is certainly a favorite of mine. I've had the opportunity to work with him and work for him. One of the great auctioneers in the business, and probably has merchandised more limousine cattle than about anybody. And I'd like to bring to the microphone now Mr. Bruce Burks. Bruce.
Still get a little step in my motion there. It worked all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, it certainly is a privilege for me to be here on the night of such a honorable night for Mark and Dee Smith. They've been great friends of ours for a number of years, as they have been for all of you. But most importantly for me, it's very important for me, and it is exciting for me to be up here on the block speaking tonight with, of course, Sonny and Doug, both great friends of mine, and Rod Peterson, one of the great limousine breeders of South Dakota, and certainly Bob Yackley, a gentleman that I've got the utmost of respect for, him and his family, and of course the Petersons and the Yackleys both have some of the greatest families involved in the limousine business today. So it's a privilege for me to be up here on a podium with these folks, and Smitty, I'm very happy to be saying a few words on your behalf. I hope I do it well enough to suit you. I've known Mark Smith probably longer than anybody here in the room. Smitty, you know where I'm going with this. In about 1978, I was asked to sell, and I was just starting out in the auction business, and I was asked to sell the Missouri State Shorthorn sale at Sedalia, Missouri. Well, as any auctioneer would, you get your catalog and you walk through and look at all the cattle that were going to be sold there that day. And I walked down, and there were a couple of bulls died in there, and the gentleman taking care of them, I visited with him. I said, "These your bulls?" "Well, no, they're not my bulls, but I'm here taking care of them. And the bulls belong to Fred and Mabel Coates." And we can go on and on about that. They became limousine breeders later on, but at that time they were breeding shorthorn cattle, and probably had the smallest shorthorn cattle in the world. Anyhow, I visited with Mark, and we talked about Fred and Mabel, and we talked about the bulls and this and that, and we went ahead and had the sale, and I'm sure they probably brought $450 a piece or whatever. Anyhow, if we got them sold back in those days, it was a success. But anyhow, that is the first time that I met Mark, and I remember visiting with him there alongside those bulls, and we had a nice visit. He told me he was going to the University of Missouri, and that he hoped to get in the fielding business. And we talked a good bit about that, and I hope I encouraged him to do so. sure I'm not the one that led him into this business, but we talked about it, and he was sure keen on becoming a field man, and certainly that's what he became. I worked with him, as I'm sure Sonny did, when he worked for the Record Stockman. Worked and traveled around and made a couple of sales with him at that time. Of course, a good friend of ours, Bill Angel. We all remember Bill, great man that managed the Nebraska Cattlemen's Classic out there for a number of years. The Nebraska facility at Great Bend, Nebraska, he was the manager there. And of course, he helped Mark along when he was with the Record Stockman there. And I'm sure Mark, with TV being there a few years before you had several fences to mend in a year or two that you were there at the Record Stockman. One thing I did hear about Mark Smith, though, when he was with the Record Stockman, was one of his first duties was to take a picture of the grand champion carload of bulls in Denver. Well, he was out there with his camera and his film, but he didn't know how to put the film in the camera. So fortunate for Mark, Andy Rest, our good friend over here to the right, which all of us know, Andy helped him put the film in the camera, and hopefully he got some good pictures that he could take back to Denver. From 1983 through 1987, he was a partner with American Cattle Service. Of course, I think most of you have heard of American Cattle Services. It was formed by a gentleman by the name of Ken Holloway to manage purebred registered sales, and he did so professionally for a number of years, and at one time managed over 100 limousine sales, which speaks volumes for the integrity that he and American Cattle Services had at that time. The first job, well, it wasn't a job actually, Ken called Smitty down to Oklahoma for orientation down at Chattanooga, and the first item of business was to help the County Hills Ranch crew tear down a cattle barn. So I'm sure at that time Smitty wondered what in the world did I get myself into. But anyhow, Ken put him right to work, and of course, I think Smitty found out right away. Working for American Cattle Services, you better wear several hats. After he left Chattanooga and came over to Marietta, he jumped in the car with me, and we had a swing of ranch calls we were going to make. We headed up to Illinois, and of course, I'm sure Smitty was all fired up and ready to go and look at these cattle and take pictures and look up advertisement budgets and that sort of thing. And about halfway between Ardmore and Tulsa, I need to pull over for some gasoline. Well, I reached in my pocket and I forgot my wallet. So, first time, and the compound matters worse, I only had $20 in my pocket, and we were going to be out for 10 days. So I quickly dialed my wife and told her to forward my water on us where we were going to be, and fortunately it made it. But anyhow, it all worked out, but I'm sure now Smitty is thinking, what in the world did I get myself into? First day I'm tearing down a cattle shed, and the next day I'm running with a damn idiot that hadn't got his billfold and only got $20 in his pocket. But it all worked out, and I can say in all seriousness that Smitty was a great asset for American Cattle Services, especially in the northern tiers of states, the Dakotas, Illinois, Iowa, of course, Missouri, his home state. But he did wonderful work representing American Cattle Services, and did it professionally, as already been spoken about. But we certainly enjoyed working with Smitty, and he would go out and he'd take pictures, he'd work with the clients, he'd set up advertisement budgets, he'd come back, and at that time my wife Kathy was placing ads, and I know Smitty worked quite closely with Kathy, and I know Kathy has a deep admiration for Mark Smith and the connections that they had back in those days. And of course he's a great ring man. We always enjoyed him around the ring. Who wouldn't enjoy a guy with a great big old smile and a belly laugh, and you know, a big old tall guy that would turn those bids in well, and he was great around the ring. One thing about it though, you know, he was great in a lot of facets of the sale management business, but one thing that he wasn't very good at was handling work, the work help. We had a sale one time up at Russell, Kansas, and we worked all day sorting the cattle, and then the next day we had the cattle sale, and that night we were going to spend the night there in Russell, because we were going to fly out the next morning someplace else. Well, there were a couple of hands, really good hands from Colorado, Bill Smotherman and Terry Paradise. They were two of our best hands. And they spent the night also. And we had supper that night, and on the way back to the motel, somebody said, you guys up for a dice game? And they said, why, sure. Well, they had already cashed their checks at the front desk. That was back in the day when you could take a check in the front desk and they had cash and they'd give it to you. So they had, I don't know, a couple $100 apiece in their pocket, and we go back to the motel room, Smitty pulls out that drawer. Remember that? Lays it down there, and he gets hot. I mean, the fire is coming off his fingernails. And he takes all the money from those boys, and they worked there for a week. And not only did he get all that money, but those boys went back to the front desk and cashed another check. And came, I think they did that twice. I never saw anybody in my life as hot as this man was down here. But anyhow, we had a hard time getting those boys back to work for us. In conclusion, I just want to say this. I'm honored to be here tonight. Smitty's been a good friend of our family for a number of years, and he is a professional. One thing that I really think, when I think about Mark Smith, I think about a person that is accountable. If you ask him to do something, he will do it. If you ask him to be at a certain place at a certain time, he will be there 15 minutes early. He's that kind of guy. And certainly we're honored tonight to put him in the Hall of Fame. He is very deserving of it. And Smitty, I hope you enjoy your evening tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Oh, okay, one more story? Okay, yeah. All right, there is one more story that we had. Greg Martin back here at one point was Mark's judging team coach at University of Missouri. And of course, you read in the bio there that Greg always said Mark had a great eye for cats. Mark had a great eye for cars. Back in like 1982, somewhere along in there, give or take, Mark bought a 1973 Cadillac Eldorado convertible. Metallic green, white walls, white cloth top. We called it the pickle. Well, in the process, when Mark was moving to Oklahoma when he worked for American Cattle Services, well, I went up to North Platte. Him and I jumped in that car. Now, I don't know if y'all have ever seen the movie Junior Bonner. Everybody know the movie Junior Bonner? We thought we were Junior Bonner. We were driving down the highway, having a cold beer, just having it. The top was down. We're somewhere between Salina and Wichita on Highway 81. Here comes Highway Patrol. And he pulls Mark over, and Mark's sitting there, and he comes up there, and he says, "Are you speeding?" He says, "Yeah, probably was." He says, "It's got a 400 in it." Okay? So he goes back and writes Mark a ticket. Brings the ticket back up there, and he says, "Do you guys slow her down?" He says, "By the way," he says, "I've been passing some beer cans out here on the highway as I'm coming up behind you guys. You know anything about that?" Mark says, "No. If I'm going as fast as this ticket says, we're probably sucking them out of the ditch." We had big times. We were cool. I think Bulldog ended up with that car, didn't we decide that? Yeah. Well, the next gentleman I'm going to bring up to the microphone needs no introduction. One of the great ranching families here in South Dakota, a 50-year breeder of limousine cattle, and a former NALF board of director, Rod Peterson. Rod.
said, would you talk a little at Mark's induction? And I said, I'd be honored to. One of the things are honored, I mean. You do wrong, you need to switch. And, I told Kylie, I said, I know exactly where we're gonna start. We're gonna start with a half-hour slide presentation of Mark showing cattle from 1988 American Royal. And Kylie said, oh, no, 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 you don't get no half hour. And my son-in-law told me, Dad, nobody's interested in ancient history. So I thought about it a while, and I thought, 88 is not near early enough. Talking about Mark and Lewis and Dad. So bear with me. I'm gonna regress in time back to 1981. I'm at the National Western, with my friend's bulls ready for display. And I look up and I see this tall, skinny kid coming in, steps a mile long, great big infectious smile, sticks out his hand and firmly shakes mine and says, hi, I'm Mark Smith. My friends call me Smith. I'm the new field man for the limousine trailer. He said, I hear you've had a pen here every year since '76. He said, you know, I know a lot about the beef industry, but I don't know a damn thing about these limousine cattle. Would you take a little time and show me your pen and tell me what you like and what you don't like? I said, sure will. So we discussed every bull in the pen, and when we got done, reaches out, thanks me for my time, gives me another one of them firm handshakes, and takes off with that famous fast pace of Mark Smith. Well, I follow him to the end of the pen, and I watch him go up the alley, and I think to myself, wow, I don't know who found him. Was it old Bob? Or was it Dan or Dale? But I said, if we can, thought to myself, if we can get all that energy and enthusiasm to promote limousine cattle, we're going to have a great one. We might even have a lifer. And so over the years, the job description might have changed. But one thing never changed. That was Mark's dedication to the breed, to the people, and most importantly, to the beef industry. And through those many years, our friendship continued to grow. Phone calls got a lot longer, and back then it was all cost because there was no cell phones back in Asian history. But Mark would call up and we'd talk about the things he'd seen in his travels, and then he'd always ask me, what's working at your place? You run your deal as close to a commercial output as anybody I know. And so we talked about that. And I guess we can't possibly talk about Mark and the limousine breed without our years on the national board. We were both on it at the same time, and it was an interesting time in breed history, to put it mildly. Not only were we developing this new combination of genetics called Limplex, we also had the little challenge of trying to build a computer program. Well, I'm here to tell you, most of the cowboys back in them times didn't know much about computers. Thank heavens we have one. But I'm also positive to tell you that every computer programmer we had in there didn't know whether to put the bucket feed on the front end or the back end of the cow. And that's what we had to work with. But we made it through. A lot of long discussions, a few sleepless nights. Probably wasn't perfect, but we did the best job that we could do. And so, I realize I'm kind of running out of time. So we're going to summarize 42 years with thank you for everything you've done for the beef industry. Because let's be real serious, folks. Beef is what we're all about. And thank you for everything you've done for the Limousine people and the Limousine County. Always giving it 110%. Help anybody, whether it be a mating decision or a marketing decision. But most of all, I want to thank you for always being the friend that I knew I could call and talk to. And you would always tell me what you thought, even when you knew it wasn't what I was saying. And to be real honest, folks, I still call it today. And so, to sum this all up, I hope you bet Tyler $20 tonight that I ended up this deal this way. So you get back to 5 you lost the last time I had this one. If the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, we're going to catch more walleyes. We're going to hunt more pheasants. We might even play another round of true golf. But one thing I know is we will talk about the people and the cattle that made this great breed that we're celebrating here today. Thank you, Mark. There's no way to say all the things you've done. Good luck in the retirement. Hope you enjoy a lot. And God bless you both. Thank you.
You know, as Mark's dedication to the breed extends way beyond the boundaries of his own operations. As a mentor, as an educator, he has shared his vast knowledge and expertise with aspiring breeders and enthusiasts, ensuring the continuity and advancement of the Limousine breed. His guidance and support have empowered others to strive for excellence, fostering a community of passionate individuals committed to the continued success of the Limousine breed. I fast forward now 44 years from when I met Mark in 1979, and I look back at our travels and our adventures. And what it's meant to me in my future in the business. From the contacts, you truly are an advocate of the Limousine breed and the future of other young professionals in the marketing business. And for these reasons and your dedication to the Limousine breed is why we are honoring you tonight. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for all you do. And congratulations on being the newest member of the NALF Hall of Fame. Mark.
Well, this is quite the experience. I should have gotten instant rebuttal on some of those things. The main one I want to bring up, the car deal is semi-true. The gambling story, there was somebody else who got quite a little of that money. out of there, Mr. Brooks. You forgot that, didn't you? Yeah. But it is true. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I'd also ask for a round of applause for the Magnus Land and Cattle Company and Meinrich Land and Cattle Company and LC 365 for hors d'oeuvres, free bar, and everything that happened. So if we could give a round of applause. I'd like to first do what many of you have asked me as we're standing behind the block. What do I need to say? And those of you that have, I'm sure know what I'm about to do. First, you need to introduce your wife and thank her for everything she's done. So, Deidre. For years, her boss thought I was the phantom cowboy. Deidre's been to more weddings, baptisms, funerals, office parties, softball games by herself, and represented the Smith family. And those of you who travel kind of need to give them a little extra special so that the phantom cowboy is actually a real person once in a while. And Deidre, I appreciate you holding down the fort for all that. We've talked about it several times, but I'd like you to stand. Greg Martin, would you stand, please? Thank you, Greg. Thank you. Greg, as many of you have alluded to, Greg was the executive vice president for 10 years, I believe, wasn't it? 10 or 11? But that's not why I want you to stand. Lots of time, I get asked every once in a while, especially in these days of college loans that people don't want to pay back, what was my most important class in college at the University of Missouri? And it was Animal Science 400, Problems in Livestock Judging. And I bring that up because my coach at the time was Dr. Greg Martin, and he taught us always in problems of livestock judging that we were going to be introduced to a class every 15 minutes. And that class would be full of problems, but that every problem could be broken down into little problems. Solve the little problems, get yourself to the big problem, and solve it. And after 15 minutes, write your notes down, and you were going to have to decide what you were going to do. Make your decision, get after it. Then you were going to have to defend your decision. And you had 2 minutes to defend your position on what you had decided. And he told us at the University of Missouri, we were going to talk reasons, and we were going to be positive from the get-go. We were never going to talk an animal down. We were going to start being positive, and then we were going to move on to the next thing, and we were going to be honest. We might not know which one we were, but we were not going to tell any lies. You had to be honest. And thirdly, you had to be concise. You had to do it and do it fast. And finally, if you did make that big mistake, apologize and grant your way out of it and go on to the next thing. When I got out of school, I was a fair livestock judge. They've kind of fudged that a little bit here through the day. But as I got out of school, I was a dumb Missourian, and I just thought that was probably the way to do everything. Be positive, be honest, know your audience, and if you get in big trouble, apologize and go on. So that's just kind of the way I went about it. I'd like to thank several other people first. You've met a big group of them. I do have to get my notes down. But I want to specifically thank the hats. Andy Rest, Doug Levy, Donnie Levy, can't read with my contacts on, Chad Gordon, Kylie McKenna, Randy Ratliff, Ron Cunningham, Deron Helderman, and Chisholm Peterson. It's been a pleasure doing business with you boys for all these years. Thank you. thank them for me. And I got to, when they finally told me I did get to speak a little bit, I got to thinking, I am like Bob. I've been to every one of these Hall of Fame presentations. And I don't remember any of the speeches. But I do remember sitting in Floyd McGowan's Suburban talking about Harvest Olympus. And I remember that I sat with Dale Runyon, glass of scotch, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Andy talked about how to talk a guy into a full-page ad when he only wanted a half-page ad. We learned something from it, didn't we? And I remember sitting, believe it or not, in the back of a yacht with a Foster's beer with Leonard Wolf, looking at the Sydney Opera House and talking about limousine cattle and limousine cattle feeding. I remember lots of days learning how to sort cattle with my catalog while looking at a supplement sheet and having Holloway yell in and by and dumb son of a bitch, what you doing? You learned how to do it fast. I remember lots of days in the breeding pen with Herman Simmons talking about what are we going to breed this one to, what are we going to do with that one. And of course, I'll never forget the million miles that Sonny and I have done traveling around, trying to avoid blizzards and rainstorms, ice, all kinds of miscellaneous stuff. But we do know the reason God made Oklahoma, don't we, Sonny? So, I've never seen the limousine breed in as good a place in its genetic makeup, both four-legged and two-legged. And I just want to thank you all for allowing us, Dee and I, to join you in this venture that we've all been on. It's been a pleasure and always will be. Thank you.
Well, folks, that's a wrap. We appreciate each and every one of you coming tonight. Good luck to all the exhibitors this week, and safe travels home.